coffee steam rising high. Guns picks on the screen, let's fly. Counter Mac, breaking down the game. Babano bets always bringing the flame. Cash and tickets, money like fame. Firing shots, let the phone ring. Cup of coffee, parlay set sail. Winning bets never gonna fail. Counter Mac got that insight so deep. Guns picks live while the world sleep. Open those wisdom, smooth as a wave.
Fresh cup of coffee in the big time, baby. Yeah. What's going on, everybody? It is GunzPicks, and this is Saturday Mornings with GunzPicks. I am the host with the most, the point guard of podcasting, this self-proclaimed CFB GOAT himself. And thanks for joining me here. It is going to be a beautiful morning. I've been recording shows all night. I'm a little bit tired. I'm a little bit gassed. I got 4 hours of sleep. I got to go drive to Virginia to go to a wedding today. Who has weddings in the fall? They need to be ostracized for that, but I got to make sure that I introduce my guest here properly that's going to be joining me on the show. We're going to have two guests, actually, but here's the first one coming out of the gate. You've seen him on Hitting the Books at YouTube. You can also catch him on X at Bobano Bets. It is Ian Cameron. What's going on, my friend? How you doing this beautiful morning?
That's a hell of a good intro you got, Guns, with this show, with that musical interlude. That was phenomenal. I loved every second of that.
It's a soft rock, yacht rock. It's supposed to be like the morning shows that you see on TV and NBC and like Mondays and stuff, where it's just like, hey, we have great guests today. That was kind of the theme on this one. But we talked backstage, and we talked about how great this week has been for us. I'm 7-1 this week, and you are 12-4 on the week, getting into the Saturday slate. And we talked about the back door with UNLV on the full game yesterday. Of course,
the only saving grace is I had UNLV team total over and the full game over. Those bets were more profitable for me than the loss I suffered with UNLV minus 18. So thankfully, I diversified my portfolio, as you would say, and didn't put everything on just the spread.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to break that. This is what this show's about. It's about the chat. So get into the chat. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you're drinking. Tell me what you're smoking. Tell me what you're cooking here on this beautiful Saturday. We have a big, giant slate. Of course, it's going to be highlighted with Ohio State going up against Oregon on the road in Duckland. But we'll be talking about all those games. But first, as always, how we start this show is we grind up the beans. We put it in the coffee maker. We get the water in the back. We pour that in. And we hear the drip, 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 drip. It is called the Cup of Coffee Parlay. Here we go. We're on the precipice of hitting one of these damn things. I think we missed by one last week, but we're going to do it here today. We got Iowa money line going against a highs of highs with the Washington Huskies traveling on the road. Brutal spot for them in Kinnick. Then we got Rutgers money line. Love Rutgers today. Georgia Tech money line. Miami, Ohio money line. Let's go a little MAC action on that one. Then we got Penn State, actually. And then we have Rocky Top, Tennessee, going against their rival Florida. Texas State money line. Ohio State money line. That is a boosted parlay at BetMGM plus 32.59. So we're just betting a cup of coffee. We're not spending our money. We're straight bettors, not parlay guys. So that is the cup of coffee parlay. Of course, I got one more, which is going to be the double dip, the triple doggy parlay that is going to be coming up here soon. But let's talk about college football. Let's talk about the slate that's coming up here. We're going to start with South Carolina going against Alabama. Alabama, upset city. Vandy beat you. I'm sure the practices this week were brutal with Kalen DeBoer and the boys. You have freshman defensive guys kicking the ball at the end, frustrated as hell. I don't have anything on this game, but I will pass it to Mr. Bobano. What do you think about this one?
So I am higher on Alabama this year than maybe some people. And although last week, even for as optimistic and positive as I've been about Alabama and believing in Kalen DeBoer and certainly at least believing in their offense, their defense, that's another story. But
right.
I even was on Vanderbilt last week. It was just, to me, pretty obvious that, after the emotional win of beating Georgia, and not just the emotion of beating a rival like that's been battling you for SEC supremacy for years. It's the fact they had the big lead, crowds going nuts at Bryant Denny. Georgia storms all the way back, ties it, takes the lead, And then Alabama, the very next play, Milroe to Brian Williams, touchdown. It's just the roller coaster of that game as well. And we saw it play out last week against a Vandy team that, look, beat Virginia Tech outright as dogs on the road. And also, of course, and then or at home, I should say. And then also, of course, took Missouri down to the wire in overtime. So we knew Vanderbilt could hang. I didn't expect Vandy to win, but when they did, 40-35. And look, there's issues on that defense with Alabama. But here's the thing with South Carolina. Their defense at times has been solid, but you start to look at who they've played and where they've struggled. And the two games against offenses that were anywhere close to being in the level of Alabama's offense was LSU, and South Carolina got shredded in that game, give up 36 points. Last week against Ole Miss, they struggled. They gave up 27 points. I think they're probably going to struggle here. And those were at home. Those were home games, too, for South Carolina against LSU and Ole Miss. Now you're going on the road. This team's angry, Alabama. So I do like Bama here, minus the 21 is what I laid. I split that and I've been doing this a lot lately with the bigger favorites, like with UNLV last night, splitting the spread with the team total. Team total I got minus 150 over 34.5 with Alabama. I think they can get to 35 here in this game. And I also dabbled on over 50, I should say, in this game because, look, this Alabama defense has been bad. And the hope is maybe South Carolina, even with Lenora Sellers having a pretty awful game last week against Ole Miss, can do enough to chip in with the scoring. So 3 bets here, a little bit more on the Bama bets, the spread and the team total, and also the full game over.
I don't hate the team total on that one. I think that's probably the direction I would go with this one. You have an Alabama team that can definitely score points, not necessarily on the defensive side, like you alluded to. We saw some kinks in the armor, I should say, of what that defense is going to be down the road. You just made a Vandy team that Diego Pavea is just a giant killer. He's David and Goliath type of situation. He did it last year at Auburn with New Mexico State. He does it with Alabama. This bringing that kid in under center, it's just changing the game. And he has that. What is he? Idolize Manziel. Yeah, I think he parties like Manziel too. I think he was knocking him back after that game out in Nashville. But this game to me is I'm going to be a little bit hesitant with Bama, but I think there's opportunities down the road, especially in this game too, that the team total overs is probably the way to go. This Bama team's going to score points in a lot of these situations. However, on the other side, how many stops are they going to make? Is this going to be more of a track meet? Yeah, I would lean towards the over, and I would probably look at the team total over for Alabama, like Bobano alluded to. Let's go to the next play here. This is an interesting one, and I wanted to bring this game up. Of course, Missouri coming off just getting beaten down to what was it, A&M, and they looked embarrassing. I had A&M money line. It was the easiest ticket I had last week. It was a beautiful. I think this A&M team can make the playoff. By the way, I have a plus 320 ticket that's going to tell me so. And then we have this UMass team that, while people are a little bit downtrodden with UMass, I know they're one of the worst teams in FBS. This team historically has stayed with SEC teams and covered spreads. I'll pass it to you, Ian. What are your thoughts on this game?
I actually did dabble and took a small piece with UMass here, plus 27.5. I actually got an alt spread at 28, and I'd like minus 120. So laid a little bit more juice to get the 28 on the key number. Look, Missouri talent-wise can win this game by 4 touchdowns or more, absolutely. And they're going to probably be in a bad mood after the A&M loss. But, you got bigger games coming up. This is not a game that I know they're going to want to win and bounce back and save face for last week. But there's SEC games coming up, real tough ones still on the way for Missouri. And you look at this UMass team with Fomachan, the quarterback, and this guy's been at multiple places. Georgia Tech, he's been around the block here. He's getting better. They've got at least some semblance of a passing, and their defense is still pretty weak, but it's not as bad as it was last year. UMass, they're taking the ball away. They still give up yards, but they're forcing a few more turnovers. And that if they force just 1 or 2 turnovers in Missouri, now that might be easier said than done. But if they do that, you're taking away a possession from Missouri, and it sure makes it a lot more harder if that happens when you're laying this kind of numbers. So. Like I said, UMass cashed one for me last week. They've been a little bit undervalued. They've actually been a decent point spread team. And while Missouri wants to save face and have this big, strong performance, dominant effort after an embarrassing loss to A&M, I think there's bigger games on tap. And I think it's one of those deals where UMass can just do enough here at home, in Amherst to keep this game within 4 touchdowns. So did take a small shot here with the Minutemen plus the points.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think that's the way to go with this one. This is just a weird situational spot here for Missouri. You played back-to-back SEC games. Then they throw this one jammed in the middle. And then you got the brunt of your SEC schedule. You got Auburn next, and then you got Bama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State. So it's just kind of this weird kind of throw-in non-conference game that probably should have been played in, I don't know, week 3 or 4. And you're playing it later in the season, but you have to go to UMass. There's got to be no motivation to go to this spot for Missouri.
This was at Missouri, I'd feel a little differently.
Correct.
Taking UMass, but at UMass, I'm just wondering if you're going to get that full 60 minutes from the. This is not the same thing as Alabama. Alabama's bouncing back too, but they're at home in a conference game. All right, in an SEC game. This is not the same thing. So I don't know if it's comparing Missouri and Alabama's bounce back situations today is wise.
Yeah, I would probably dabble with the UMass spot. They have to be pumped up for this game to have a ranked opponent come into their Amherst, Mass, of all places, and then Missouri I just think they're going to come out flat here. They may come out boat race them in the first half, but UMass will stick around second half, and it's going to be one of those games. The only play to take on this one, and I think we both agree, is UMass or pass. Let's go into the next game, and we have the Red River rivalries. Try to say that 3 times fast. It used to be called a shootout, but don't say that. Don't say that. No. Texas is number 1 in the country. Of course, Oklahoma had downtrodden this year. The spread is 14.5. This is kind of one of the biggest spreads in this rivalry, in my recollection. So Texas just running red hot. Can Oklahoma stay with him? I'll pass it to you, Ian. What do you think?
I'm not sure. I definitely lean a little bit to Texas, but there's something about now. I'm seeing now this number is at just 17. It's painted. It's 17 across the board right now. So even more money has come in. I certainly wouldn't lay 17. I grabbed a tiny little bite at 14. 17, I wouldn't touch it. I think they're definitely the superior team. I worry like crazy about Oklahoma's offense here in this game against that Texas defense. Obviously, that O-line has not been good this year for the Sooners. They've been pushed around. The run game has been spotty. Pass protection has been up and down for Oklahoma. It's not going to be easy for them to move the football against Texas's defense. And I love Texas's offense, and they are getting Quinn Ewers back. I'm just shocked on Facebook and social media, Twitter, X, all these places with Texas fans saying, "Oh, he better play well, Quinn Ewers, or they better put Arch Manning in there." You not realize this guy won at Alabama last year and had a huge dominant performance at Michigan earlier this year and looked awesome. Michigan he's a friggin' great quarterback. Absolutely. Have some respect. Mm-hmm. Appreciate what Quinn Ewers has done for you, especially in the big games. It's like they've become so infatuated because his name's Manning with Arch that they've blinded themselves to how good and don't appreciate how good Quinn Ewers has been, especially in the big games. And here's another big game with a chance to prove himself here against Oklahoma. So I think it's one of the bigger mismatches in recent Red River rivalry history. But at the same time, crazier things have happened. It's been an underdog-heavy series. The underdog's and Oklahoma has often given Texas a tough battle. This is a different level of Texas, in my opinion. We'll see. I'd be leery, though, now at 17. In fact, I think 17, or if it gets higher, I think at that point, you either take a small shot with Oklahoma at that number or you pass the game. Interesting game to watch, though.
Absolutely. I'm kind of leaning towards the total on this one. I'm seeing the total here. It was 51.5 open. It was 50. Now it's ticking down to 49. And then the line's going up. You're right. It's at 17 right now as I'm seeing it right now. So, yeah, this is typically a close rivalry. And don't forget what Texas has next week. They got Georgia next week. So I granted this rivalry is important to both teams. I don't think it's any sort of look ahead for Texas. That's not what I'm saying here. I think this is going to be one of those spots that it could stay relatively close, at least with Oklahoma. They have problems on the offensive side, but their defense, they have a pretty decent pass rush, so they may be able to get some pressure on the quarterback and Quinn Ewers, especially him just coming back from, a week or two rest, coming back from injury. But you said it. Why are people down on Quinn Ewers? He brought him to the semi. If you watch that college football playoff semifinal, that granted they lost to Washington in that game, he played his ass off. He played a terrific game offensively. They just could not stop Pettis in that electric offense. That was it. but they were right down to the wire, took him down to the goal line, and almost punched it in for the win. Don't take anything away from this kid. He shows up in big games. This is a big game. This is a primetime game. I think he plays his ass off. But if I had to take one direction on this one, it's going to be stay away from the number, stay away from the side. I don't know what Oklahoma team is going to show up here, but I like the total on this one. I probably lean towards. I haven't played it myself. I would lean towards. I see under 49. If you find a 50 out there, go grab that one as well. But I think this is going to be a little bit slower pace game, especially with Texas. I think Texas is going to save a little bit of the playbook there for Georgia next week. All right, I always have to give out one. I always have to give out two. I got to give out my second parlay for the boys, and we're going to go with another cup of coffee parlay. Fresh roasted, poured, steam coming off of this one. This is the second one. We give the double doggy parlay. We got Zona money line going to BYU. Listen, Arizona has played in Utah and won. So everybody loves Provo. Everyone's like, oh, they're going to Provo. I was like, they just played at Salt Lake City 2 weeks ago. They can handle this type of atmosphere over there. And they played at night at Utah where nobody wins. And they got the job done. Of course, LSU money line and West Virginia money line. Take me home, country road. Oh, by the way, the LSU game 10-2, straight up. The home team is in the Ole Miss and LSU rivalry. So I'll back Brian Kelly for once in my life and give me the plus 1962 parlay. You can get that at BetMGM. So that's going to be the number 2 parlay. Any thoughts on those doggies? Is there a game that catches your eye there?
Not really. I'm on actually BYU just because of how strong they are at home, but it's not one of my top plays today. But they have played well at home. They played really well at night. This is a day game. There is a little difference with day and night, I find, when they play in Provo. And the record bears that out. The record not nearly as good in the home games in the afternoon compared to at night. But, that Arizona win over Utah suddenly doesn't look so good, after last night. I mean, my goodness. And Isaac Wilson was a disaster in that football game. And I feel bad for Isaac Wilson. I mean, you've been so bad, and 7 turnovers that he's had, and you couldn't even get in the game because of that, when clearly last night Cam Rising was physically compromised. Like, he shouldn't have even been playing last night. That was hard to watch. This is a guy that's had a great career at Utah, an unbelievable college run there, Rose Bowl championships, Pac-12 championships, and we might have to remember him in one of his final games in his final season looking like that last night, a hobbling mess out there, could not put weight on one side of his body, with inaccurate because he can't move around properly, can't set his feet, can't plant properly.
Right.
That's just so sad to watch that. I mean, if I'm Kyle Whittingham, what am I doing to this guy who's been the backbone of my program in the quarterback spot for the last couple of years? I'm putting him out in that condition. That's bad. I know Isaac Wilson stinks, and that's the big part of it, but my goodness, that was rough to watch.
Yeah, I feel bad for him too. I mean, it seems like he's been to college for like 10 years at this point, maybe. I think 7, 8. And yeah, watching him just hobble out there is just brutal. He hasn't been the same.
He misses all those throws last night if he's healthy. No way. I mean, clearly he can't do what he normally can do.
Yeah, he hasn't been the same since what? He got hurt in that Rose Bowl, years ago? And he's just been hobbling like ever since. I feel so bad for him because I thought he had a bright career ahead of him, at least in the professional level as well. But let's get more games on the board here. We have a Penn State team traveling to the West Coast. This is a Big Ten game, folks. Let's get used to this. A USC playing at home in the Coliseum. This is going to be a big one for both teams on this one, of course. Penn State, a run-first offense. I haven't seen if Singleton is going to be playing this game. I know he was dealing with some injuries on that.
I think he is. I think he's good to go. Yeah.
Okay, if he's good to go, then I think this is probably more I lean towards the Penn State spot. I'm not going to play this one at all. I need to see the barometer of both of these teams, especially the Penn State. If you're going to be ranked number 4 in the country, can you act like the number 4 team in the country? Granted, you came off I would say a flattish win over Illinois, tied at the half. Kind of took over and won the game, did enough to get a 2-score win and held Illinois to 7 points. Pretty impressive there. I digress. I'm not high on USC either in any spot. Do you have any thoughts on this game, Ian?
How about the fact that we got a developing story here in this? Well, it's really across all of college football, Big Ten, ACC, with all now these West Coast teams that are part of the Big Ten and part of the ACC this year. We've got a developing trend showing up 1-7 is the record straight up for teams that have to travel across 2 time zones this year in either the Big Ten or the ACC. That's East or West. That's not good. 1-7,
Wow.
and we've seen it play out that way. Look at what it's been rough to see. And so I think when you look at this, here's another example of that. You got USC, and I saw something about how they had to not only fly to LA, but they had to get a bus too on the way. And it was just the travel was not routine for Penn State getting into Los Angeles here for this game. You factor in that USC, people kind of souring on them after that horrible loss last week at Minnesota. I think it's one of those sneaky spots, and Penn State's not exactly lighting it up right now. They haven't been that impressive the last 2 weeks. The Illinois game was unimpressive. The UCLA game was them totally going through the motions, looking very lethargic through most of that game. This is still, I think, a game that where Lincoln Riley, we'll see if he can get his kids reeled in again, because it's such a setback of a loss last week. And you are concerned about the offensive line, which is nowhere near as good as it's been in recent years. They're having trouble running the ball. Miller Moss is not getting great protection. We know this is a very good Penn State defense, but I think there's a tricky little spot for Penn State. I don't know if they lose, but I think they get a game from USC. And I took USC at a good number at 5. I don't think that's around anymore, but I did take a small bite with the Trojans here. This is the first time far away from home for Penn State. Let's see how they handle it.
Yeah, they're coming off that loss, going to Minnesota, and then they beat Wisconsin the week prior to that, and of course that loss to Michigan in the Big House.
Riley's been a pretty good underdog too in his career. That's the one thing. USC's been a very good dog, and we saw what they did against LSU as a dog first week of the year.
Yeah, this is the first time they've been a dog since that game, correct? And I'm looking at the numbers here. So yeah, maybe we do. Maybe I've changed my tune a little bit about this USC team. The problem that I have with is
the problem is Penn State's still the better team. So
Penn State's a better team. They can run the football, and that's the kryptonite for USC is stopping the run. And if you got a Penn State team that controls time of possession, they're able to move the ball with Singleton, and then they're able to kind of work off the play action, move the ball down the field, and then they start scoring. I don't think USC is going to keep up because that Penn State defense can hold opponents to low scoring. But I got to see the barometer here with this Penn State team. We've always been in love with this Penn State team early, and then they get in these big games, and then you don't get what you're supposed to out of this one. I'm going to pass on this one and just wait and see. I need to see some value here in the Penn State side. I kind of like them at home versus bad teams. It seems like they play their best ball and cover spreads that way. But this one is a brutal spot for them traveling over 2 time zones. And of course, the trend that's tied into that one as well. Another big game coming up here. And I hate the fact that Cal let Miami off the hook. I had them at plus 380 on the money line as a little bit of a sprinkle. We did cover the spread. Now they're going to play. I mean, Berkeley was rocking with College Game Day. They had that place was packed at 6 a.m. and ready to go. I put more money on Cal when I saw that. I saw that crowd just lit up. It was a bad spot for Miami, and now they got to go and take that momentum and carry it over to the East Coast to go play number 22 Pitt, a Pitt team that is playing very well on the offensive side. They come off that win versus a bad UNC team, but this team is kind of humming along better than I thought they would. Now they're ranked. Cal is a dog. Wilcox has done very well, but can they get it done here traveling off that highs or carry the momentum into this Pitt game? What are your thoughts, Ian?
I think it's difficult. I am on Pitt here. And Pitt, it's not just that Cal's in the tricky spot. Another coast to coast deal. Although that 1-7 trend only applies to the Big Ten. I want to specify that it's a Big Ten trend with that. So this is ACC. This is different. And I do remember Cal going to Auburn, west to east, and upsetting Auburn earlier this year. So they've shown they can go east and play well. But coming off that game, they had it until they didn't. Last week against Miami, that was just a brutal loss. I mean, they had that game just pretty much. It felt like in the bag. And then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, they got a little passive. Miami got going with Cam Ward. And the next thing you know, they come back and they win. That's a terrible loss just because game day was there. The environment was off the charts in Berkeley. And now after a loss like that, you got to pick yourself up off the mat, fly all the way to the east into Pittsburgh, play a Pitt team that's actually pretty solid, especially on offense. Eli Holstein and that offense is rolling right now. Their defense is still a little shaky, but Can Fernando Mendoza, Jay Knott, the running back, and company take advantage of that? I think this could be a game with some points too, lean over. But yeah, situationally, I'm on Pitt. And even from a matchup, X's and O's fundamentals, Pitt's a better team, and Pitt's a really good team, especially on offense. So not only does the fundamentals in Pitt's favor, because I think they're the slightly better team, but Cal, the situationals are terrible for them. So yeah, for me, Pitt laying the small number at home.
Yeah, they're off back-to-back losses. Of course, they had the bye going into that one with Miami, but they've already played a road game on the East Coast. They played Florida State, really didn't play well. 14-9, kind of just an awful loss, even though they were plus 126 net yards in that game. Kind of probably some outliers in there. They held them, they put up 410 yards of offense versus them, and then 284 given up to Florida State, and still lost the game. Kind of weird numbers there statistically. And now, you're going into that game that was highly emotional game at night. You had their back against the wall. This Miami team's on borrowed time, in my opinion. I am not high on the Hurricanes at all. I think Cam Ward is not as good as people think they are. They've just been reluctant on the opponents that they played and got lucky in two back-to-back spots, Virginia Tech and Cal. But talking about Cal here and the Pitt game, I lean towards the Pitt side. I agree with you there. I think Pitt's going to just continue that momentum all the way through the ACC, and they'll find better spots here. But this Cal team traveling this far out off that big game, bad spot here for Wilcox and the boys. But yeah, lean towards the Pitt side or pass. Here's a rivalry that is kind of underrated here because, Florida's having a down year, but you have Tennessee coming off that loss to Arkansas last week. A lot of mistakes by the freshman Nico, running out of bounds with the time coming off the clock. I mean, with no time on the clock, kind of you have to understand the situation and what you have to do, clock management, whatever. But Arkansas got the win. I have a ticket at over 5.5 wins, so that was good for me. And then you have Florida just playing awful lately. I've talked about this on multiple shows. I think the best way to play this one when you got Tennessee off the loss is take them on the first half. The line was weighted towards that anyways. I had them at minus 8.5. I bought it earlier in the week. I've talked about it on multiple shows. That's the play that I'm on for the first half. But I'll pass it to you, Ian. What are your thoughts? Florida, Tennessee.
Very, very tricky because Florida did show a pulse last two games, really. Well, Mississippi State's bad. And maybe UCF's bad because they got trampled by Colorado, and then Florida rolls in there and beats them 24-13. But the bottom line is, with everyone clamoring for Billy Napier's head in Gainesville, all of a sudden now they've won 2 in a row. They look like they're rallying for their embattled coach. They really do. Florida. And even the defense finally stepped. The defense has been terrible, but it finally stepped up against UCF and played better. And we know their offense is capable enough. With the quarterback combo of Mertz and Lagway. Billy Napier's been using both of them of late. They've even started to run the ball better, led by Montrell Johnson. But this is a different beast. You got Tennessee off the loss to Arkansas at Neyland Stadium. We'll see if they can handle it. Series history matters, though, to me, Guns. It's very difficult to lay this many, especially with the full game, when you see that Florida is 6-1 straight up. Against Tennessee in the last 7 meetings. That's 6-1 straight up, and also 5-2 against the spread. And the only Tennessee wins versus Florida in the last 10 meetings since 2014, they won by 5, they won by 10. They haven't come close to winning by this kind of a margin that they're favored by. That's very tough to bet Tennessee at this number because of that. And Florida's showing some life. I'd honestly lean with the Gators. I absolutely think Tennessee's the better team. There's no question. So this is not a significant position for me, just a small bet. But Florida at the number, I thought was, given the fact we've seen some life from them the last 2 weeks, I thought we'll take a small shot with them. But again, Tennessee, could they win this game by 28 going away? Absolutely. But the offensive line has struggled. The secondary has struggled for Tennessee the last couple of games. And the secondary was their weak point coming into the year anyway. Nico Iamaleava's kind of regressed after a great start. One of their key receivers is banged up going into this game. So there are some things that Tennessee has to overcome here. So given the series history, I grabbed a small chunk here with the Florida Gators.
Yeah, that kept me off the full game is because of that history there. But I think they come out smoking here in the first half with Tennessee.
First quarter might even be the better bet with Tennessee.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
Tennessee likes to put their foot on the gas pedal early. If you look at the first half, they've outscored opponents 149-9. in the first half. Granted, weaker competition kind of plays a lot into that. And of course, on the Florida side, 76-61, they've outscored their opponents in the first half. But the weight of the first half line kind of kept me on this one. But you said it, 6-1 straight up in ATS last 7 meetings with Florida. And of course, that win last year, 29-16 over Tennessee, when Tennessee was a 5.5-point favorite. This is the biggest favorite that Tennessee has been. I'm looking at as far as 1997. They have not been this big of a favorite ever against Florida. I mean, they were minus 10.5 in 2022, and they only won that game by 5. So maybe I'm only on the first half on this one. But yeah, the history does scare me, is reason why I'm not taking them full game. But of course, Ian, he took a little piece for the Florida side. I can't talk him off that one. The history plays into that one. And it's the same type of mentality with Oklahoma and Texas. These guys play each other all the time. It's a big game for them, and stepping up, and these guys just play to the level of their competition sometimes, and it just becomes great to watch, great games, and we're looking forward to this one. Let's go to the next game here. Let's go to the Big 12. We have Iowa State, an Iowa State team that is thumping right now, and I can't wait to cash my ticket on the over wins on this one, because this team is going way over the wins. Campbell, with his back against the wall, coaches his way out of this one. Now they're ranked 11th in the country, and they're going on the road to take me home country road to a place I belong, West Virginia. 8 p.m. This is a tough situation here for Iowa State. I like the West Virginia side. I haven't put a straight bet on it. Got it part of the parlay. That's all I got on this one. But what are your thoughts on this one, Ian?
So I didn't like Iowa State coming into the year, but they've definitely played better, exceeded my expectations. I think their defense has been really good. Rocco Becht, I think, continues to gradually get better at the quarterback spot. There's no doubt they've had a solid start, 5-0. But you quibble at the competition. Their best win is Iowa, and I'm not the biggest fan of Iowa, especially on offense. And other than that, they've played North Dakota, Arkansas State, Houston, and Baylor. So they really haven't played anyone great. I think if strength of schedule matters to you, you look at West Virginia. They played Penn State, they played Pitt, they played Kansas. Oklahoma State's been a big disappointment, but still put those teams together. That's a much tougher schedule than what Iowa State's faced. Going into this game today, something about getting 3.5 at Morgantown with West Virginia. Now, they're not Iowa State's the better defense for sure. That's the concern. Can Garrett Green and that offense move the football enough against Iowa State's defense? But West Virginia's defense is getting better. It had probably their best game of the year last week against Oklahoma State in that win at Stillwater. That's a positive for them, that maybe they can go home and at least try to contain Iowa State. And if they do that, play good defense, they're going to be in this game. And I'm going to take a shot that maybe West Virginia's defense is on the improve after that game last week. So at 3, and I see 3.5s are still out there at many books right now. So at 3.5, definitely on West Virginia here.
Yeah, getting them past key numbers here is the way you want to go. I just realized I forgot one of the games that I wanted to talk about.
It's a night game too, very important. A lot of these, and this is another stadium where the night game, it's even stronger for the home team here.
Yeah, and you got all those West Virginia college students that are going to be drinking all day. They are going to be wound up, burning couches, and it's going to be a madhouse there. If you've ever been in that West Virginia territory, it is insane in that environment. And yeah, I only lean towards the home team on this one. They're going to be revved up with this one. Iowa State, you're in a bad spot. If you can come out of this one swinging, God bless you. But hey, I would say this too. It is a night game, but they have played, big top 25 teams at home already in Penn State, and they got boat raced. So what West Virginia team is going to show up here? That is going to be the question on this one. I think it's the good one, not the bad one. So we shall see if that comes to fruition here today in West Virginia. Let's talk about another. That's an old one. But let's go down the board here to. Let's go to this one. Kansas State versus Colorado. Of course, Colorado. I'm never high on them, but they're 4-1 on the year. Every time I didn't take their under on wins because I just think that everybody, refs love Colorado. ESPN loves Colorado. I don't know why you love Colorado. Granted, Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty are the front runners to win the Heisman. We'll see what comes up, by the time in December when they have to sit there in the Heisman ceremony. And what happens? We have a Kansas State team, 4-1 as well. Their only loss was to Provo, which I think has an asterisk to it because they just basically fell apart in like an 8-minute window against BYU at Provo. But this is going to be a big game for both of these teams. Kansas State, Colorado. What are your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, it is because the Big 12 is wide open. Like there is no, and I mean no clear-cut favorite to win the conference right now. Sure, Texas Tech's undefeated, BYU, Iowa State, Colorado, West Virginia, they're all undefeated in conference play. But it's still even wide open for a lot of the one-loss teams as well, including Kansas State. But Colorado 2-0 in conference play, 4-1. They're starting to turn things around. I did take this is the first time I was interested in Dion and his Colorado Buffaloes most of this. And again, another late night game in Boulder. And Kansas State, there's something about them away from the Little Apple in Manhattan where they've not been nearly as buttoned up. They've had mistakes. They've had turnovers. The defense hasn't played nearly as well. Remember the game against Tulane? They could have lost that game. I thought Tulane got hosed by a bad offensive pass interference call at the end of that game that shouldn't have been called, and then they get stopped on 4th down, and Kansas State survives. Kansas State loses, of course, to BYU on the road. Not as quite the same team for Chris Kleiman's group on the road. Colorado, when you've got playmakers and the way Shadur's playing right now, and the secondary for Kansas State can still be a little bit vulnerable. You can throw on them a little bit. I actually think the over's worth a look, too, because I think Kansas State can run on them with Giddens and Avery Johnson from the quarterback spot against that Colorado soft defensive front. But I think Colorado can throw it here on Kansas State secondary. So I think it's advantages for both offenses. So I like the over at 55, I believe, last I looked, is where that total is. And I like Colorado. So if it gets to 3, I'd maybe ease up, but at least anything above 3, and it's been above 3 most of the week, in that 3.5, 4.5 range with Colorado, I would still like them here as a home underdog.
I can't talk you off that one. I probably lean towards the over as well on this one. I mean, Colorado seems like when they play at home, it's always fun. This is a night game too, so it's gonna be rocking in this one. You're probably gonna see some big scores in this one. Kansas State can put numbers on you, and so can Colorado. Shedeur Sanders can throw the ball ridiculously to those weapons that he has at the wide receiver position. So I think this is probably going to be a boat race in this one at night in prime time. Late night degenerate special action. I lean towards the over. And of course, Ian's got other shows he's got to get to. So I'm going to give you a hard out, but I'm going to give you the floor. Tell them where they can find you on all social media platforms.
I appreciate it. Great to be with you again, Guns. Great show. You can find me on Twitter at X at Bobano Bets. The Ice Guys NHL Hockey Betting Show is 7 days a week, and it's coming up at noon today, Eastern time. And of course, through the week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, weekends, noon Eastern. Connor Mack and I, college football hitting the books every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Make sure you check that out. And also, Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, NFL edition of the show I do throughout the week. Usually record that Wednesday and Thursday. Often I have former college quarterback, believe it or not, Philip Nelson joining me on that show. And it's fun to talk, and he knows his football. So it's been great with his insight on that show for the NFL. So that you can find all that content on YouTube, and I post all the links at Bobano Bets on Twitter X. So great to be with you again, Guns. Awesome stuff.
Absolutely. Love having you on. Go check them out. Hit the books. I'm telling you, they break down every single game on the board in 2 days, in 2 parts, and it's just a great cliff notes. If you don't want to do the research yourself, these guys do it for you. Absolutely great. I'll let you go, Ian. Get out of here, and we're going to continue doing on the show. We got plenty of bets to be given out here. Of course, Connor's sitting in the queue. I'll just wait till he turns his camera on, and then we will get him on the platform and talk some ball in this one. But let's talk about some other plays that are on the board. And I'm wearing the hat for a reason, folks. Purdue is going against number 23, Illinois, in this one, and I like a half in this one. And you've probably seen it everywhere. I've been talking about this game a lot. But Illinois is 4-1 on the year. They're going against a Purdue team that is absolutely abysmal. 1-4 in the year, and their only win was against FCS opponent Indiana State. Indiana State, not a great football program. But if you throw that game out the window and you actually look at their stats for Purdue, Purdue has a minus 274 net yard average, minus 35-point differential. And if you look at the first half splits versus FBS opponents, Purdue has been outscored 80-13 in the first half with an average margin of trailing by 16.8 points in the first half. Then you have an Illinois team that has outscored their opponents 57-16 in the first half, and they're going against, and even in their Penn State game that they played, the game was tied at the half, and then they ended up losing that game, won by 2 scores, but they can stay with you in the first half. They play frisky in those positions. Then you got to look at the weight of the line on this one. Illinois, 55 to 60% of the full game line is weighted to the first half, which is giving you a high indicator. You're looking at an Illinois spot here. Also, look at the revenge angle here for Illinois. They lost to Purdue last year, 44-19. And that game was a pick'em. Now the game is 22-23.5. I mean, that is a huge line swing from game A to game B. I cannot ignore this team. However, Illinois has a tough spot coming up on deck. They have to play Michigan. Okay, that is what is keeping me off the full game. I think they come out here, track meet this Purdue team, get them out with a big lead, and then they pump the brakes and control the clock. So I like Illinois here only on the first half, minus 13.5 is the line that I have in that game. And of course, we got our guest ready to go. And you know him. He's a regular on the show. You've seen him on Hitting the Books. We just had Bobano on. We're going to have C-Mac in the building. So we're going to bring him in. What's going on, C-Mac? How you doing on this beautiful Saturday?
Guns. What's going on, my man?
Man, I'm hating life, man. And I tell you why. I'm 7-1 in college. I'll tell you, it ain't because of the betting, because college football has been killing this week. I'm 7-1 in college football. If you've been following around on Dub Club, if you've followed around in the shows, I've been absolutely murdering the board. And now I have to go to a wedding right after the show, and I'm going to miss all the games today. And then the wedding's actually Sunday because I have to drive to Virginia, and I'm going to miss all of Sunday football as well. So yeah, a little bit of a depression. I'm going to be doing a lot of score checking with my phone like this during the wedding, and maybe cheering.
Full on. I mean, no weddings this time of year. You know, people need to have that in the spring. You know, summer weddings, if it's hot as hell, kind of suck. But yeah, this is just, especially do it on the weekday, no weekends.
Yeah.
Have a little Tuesday wedding, get a discount.
That's fine.
Wherever you're at.
And I'll still be pissed because I can't watch Jacksonville State. You know, that's kind of, the stuff on the Conference USA slate. But Candyman coming in says West Virginia has black unis tonight. It might be a big game there against Iowa State. Look out. And he also likes Syracuse over NC State. NC State's terrible. I can't talk you off that one. And then, of course, Peter Grazia in the building. Oh, what's going on, my friend? All right. Well, I just talked about Purdue and Illinois. I'll throw it to you, C-Mac. Do you have any thoughts on that game, or should we keep it moving?
No, let's keep it moving. I think you hit on it. I mean, it's tough for it to back Purdue right now. I mean, yeah, this team team can't win. They can't cover. This is not the point spread I usually like to lay with Illinois. Are you on this first half? You said
first half. I can't do full game. I know
first half actually.
Yeah,
I like that. Get in, get out. Just because it's over 3 touchdowns now.
Yeah, I did that with UNLV last night, 10.5. It sailed easy, and I knew there could have been
I did too.
Some foolish stuff, chicanery. Of course, you had the backdoor action, Utah State covering that spread. I was hesitant because UNLV has a big game. They have a bye, then they have Boise, and I was like, they may be saving something for them in that game.
They did. Yeah. That was the first half, one more drive and sit.
Yeah.
Like once they hit 45 or whatever it was done. Yeah.
They pumped the brakes big time. And of course, Sharky Waters Nation in the building says Tuesday wedding honoring WNBA regular season 11 a.m. Tuesday. Yeah, I want to watch Caitlin Clark. Why can't I watch Caitlin Clark? You have this wedding on a Tuesday, damn it. All right, let's go to the next game on the board. I skipped a couple games. I realized I didn't put it on the banners, but let's talk about this one. Provo, Utah in the daytime. Arizona going against number 4 BYU, 4 p.m. And Arizona is not in unfamiliar territory. They've been in this spot. Salt Lake City at night. I know Utah is downtrodden without the quarterback position, but Arizona got the job done under Brennan and Noah Fafita. Get it done. Nice. He had a nice throw in that game too on the run. Oh God, he's so good. But I digress. This is the next game. Arizona, BYU. Any thoughts on this one, C-Mac?
This is weird. I mean, there's 2.5s out there, which is I just didn't think it maybe get there. maybe suckering in for the BYU bet, but that's how I look. I don't know what Arizona team we're going to get inconsistent. And really, after watching Utah the last few weeks, and even with the loss to them, Utah's a little bit down. Obviously, the offense just is very good. Rising came back. It doesn't matter who's in a quarterback. He looked awful, but and maybe the defense is just okay. It's not, top 20 defense for them. Like, to me, this just was a play BYU or pass if you're in this game. I know it's not at night. This BYU team, this would be another just a get in, get out, get with a win. Just you got the line here. The wide receivers have been very good with all the injuries they've had with running backs for BYU. Yeah. Receivers have been good. Red Slavic quarterback's been solid, and the defense, which is all year, I've been kind of impressed with at home. I mean, it's just kind of, now I see 2.5. So I'm like, what am I missing here? Are we going to see the old Arizona last year that was winning, covering games? And I don't know. But to me, it was BYU or nothing. What do you think?
I took Arizona at plus 4.5 earlier in the week, and the reason for that is basically, I think BYU at Provo is dangerous at night, but it's not dangerous during the day. I in Arizona, like I said, it's been in this spot, Salt Lake City. They got the job done there, 23-10. They're off a loss, and if you check the records off a loss, Arizona's 9-2 ATS off a straight up loss dating back to 2022.
I get it. I'd like them to be at home though, Guns, and they couldn't move the fucking ball at home against Texas Tech.
I know.
I watched that whole first half. I'm like, my mind's blown. I'm like, why can they? This Texas Tech defense is awful. Once I was just, but you got a 4.5. So, and the money's coming in on, like I said, this is kind of under the 3, which I'm a little surprised this morning.
I think
we could get a tight one.
Yeah, I think with Arizona, we're going to be seeing zigzags with them. They're going to play one week and then they're not going to play the next week, and it's going to be back and forth the rest of the season with them. BYU plays better as a dog too. They're in the position when they're a home favorite. They're 1-6 ATS as a home favorite.
Yeah.
So,
but this is why it's tipped. That's why it gives like a sucker bet, because now it's under a field goal. It's like really tipped. Like, it's just under the 3. It just seems easy. One thing, Arizona, I talked about making Texas Tech's defense. They need to open up the offense here, or they will lose again. I mean, they got it even against Utah. A couple big throws for Fafita, but they need to get McMillan, obviously the great wide receiver. They need to just get going. They need, it seems like the playbook is just a little too much running and not enough downfield passes. So they got to open it up, I think, here.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of leaning towards the under in this game too. I mean, they've already played in Utah, and it was 23-10 in that game. You look at the totals that Arizona has had this year: 60.5, 64.5, 61, 47, and 64, and this is 49.5. This is kind of a low total. And then Utah, last time they played in Utah, it was 47. The game ended at 33. And then average total in Arizona games in conference on the road, 36 points per game. Brutal on the travel stretch. They went to Kansas State, then a bye, then Utah, back home to play Texas Tech in the flattest of flat they played, and now they got to go to Provo, so travel might be an issue here. And BYU's ranked 13th in opponent scoring, 16.5 points per game given up. And then, both teams are kind of like trending to the under as well. I like the under. I think 49.5 is what I got it at. That's a play that I like on this one. I like that better than the spread. Okay, I got a small take on this side, but I think the under is the better play in this game in Provo. Hopefully there's not a lot of turnovers in that game like it was with Kansas State that kind of ruins a total, but we keep it moving forward. And let's talk about some late night degenerate special action, shall we? We have a Boise State team. Ashton Genty, I can't stop watching highlights of him. He looks like Barry Sanders reincarnated. Granted, Barry Sanders still alive, but I think there's just let's check his DNA, because I think he might have taken a trip somewhere to met his mother somewhere along the line, and they created an Ashton Genty. It's number 17th in the country, and then they got to go to the island and go play Hawaii, where Hawaii plays tough. And don't forget, Boise's got to look ahead here with UNLV on deck. Boise State, Hawaii. What are your thoughts on this one, C-Mac, if you have any?
I get out, I talked to a few people that maybe, kind of like Hawaii here. And this is a little similar to the UNLV game, just because the back door, I think, could be open, and this Boise defense hasn't been great. Now, this Hawaii offense has been very good all year, but I always on the island. I don't like kind of going against Hawaii, but I have to go to here. And it's similar to UNLV. First half team total. I even think the full game can get there because it's just 41.5. They've consistently got this number with bad offenses against Hawaii in years past, whether it was in Hawaii or not. And I just don't know how they don't just run it. I mean, look at this. I mean, they scored 34 against Oregon, and they could add maybe more. 56 Georgia Southern, 56 Portland State, 45 Washington State, 62. I mean, I just think they get over the 40. I think you cash the team total and look to them first half, and even the first half team total. I don't know. I might split it up. I haven't bet it, but that's where I'm looking here.
Yeah.
And then be a full game of Hawaii, maybe a cover.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah.
If you want to get cute, we could thread the needle, kind of like UNLV last night. And Danny Elif in the chat says Boise first half. I'll just look at the first half numbers for them. 28-16 first half, 20-14 against Oregon. They actually had the lead in that game. 28-7 versus Portland State. They had a 7-point lead over Washington State. 49-17 in the first half versus Utah State. You can guarantee that Ashton Genty is going to come out and have a big run and a big touchdown early in the game. They seem to be controlling his, if they get up to a big lead, he seems like he's not going back into the game in some of these situations. They're saving him for the big stuff, I guess. I don't know. But as long as he's in the game, expect a high-octane first half out of this Boise team like we saw with UNLV the other night. That's probably the way you should play this one is first half and then walk away. But I would lean towards full game Hawaii because they play tough on the island. They're 2-3 on the year. I expected them to do a lot better than that. Maybe they'll pick up the pace here going into the Mountain West Conference. But I would say first half is my lean on this one with Boise State on the island. Late night degenerate action. Place the ticket, go to bed, wake up with money for some NFL. What games do you like today, Connor, that you're eyeing in on for your slate?
Yeah, this is one I bet that's 3:30 Eastern, I believe. I took the 7.5 here. I don't love this football team at times, Guns, but I don't trust the other one laying 7.5 on the road, and that's Louisville, Virginia. I like Tyler Shuck. He just hasn't been the same guy on the road. And one of the little bit of weakness for Virginia is their pass defense. They give up over 260 yards. But I've been impressed by Louisville's defense. I think they're okay. I saw SMU go up and down, Notre Dame, even Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech shot themselves in the foot. That game should have been basically 30 even. And, that was brutal. And that game, awful. Virginia, I saw them have a horrible second half against Maryland at home. That scared me a little bit, but I had to take them here. I like how they played last week. In the fourth quarter, they're at home catching 7.5. I think you can get a turnover or two. I think they're in this one. Like I said, I mean, like the numbers overall, Louisville's defense 38, Virginia 50th. But to me, I think they're in this. I just thought 7.5 was a little crazy. There's a little too much love for this Louisville team right now.
I mean, I said it in the preview shows early in August that I was not. I thought Louisville was going to be a falling knife this year just because of the wins that they had last year. They lost so much on the offensive side of the ball. They basically had to reset there. And there's a lot of teams that they're going up against that have a pound of flesh waiting for them. There's going to be spots that I'm going to fade Louisville. I'm probably not going to be on Louisville, even though I was on Louisville last week versus SMU, and that had zero shot. One of the rare misses I had last week, and that was one that I was like, whoops. I guess I didn't see that coming. I just didn't understand why they were 6.5 point favorite at home, and they came off that loss versus Notre Dame, where really they own the yardage on that one. They had plus 115 yards versus Notre Dame in South Bend. I thought they'd come out swinging. I'm not on this one personally, but I think if moving forward with Louisville, you just got to fade this team. Their defense has kind of showed up. 3 out of their 4 games they've played. They've held their opponents to under 300 yards of total offense, but they have Georgia Tech. They gave up 410, 41 given up to SMU. So who is this defense? Who are they? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, is this going to be something we're going to see in conference that they're just going to lay eggs in certain positions because of good offenses, or is this something that they'll fix down the road and get a lot better? We'll have to see. Nothing that I'm on this one. He says H-Man Trophy 2, I think. Always talking about Genty. And then Sots Nation in the building says Happy Irish Day. Yes, I can't wait. I know they're playing Stanford and on the road here. A tough spot. I can't take them on the spread today because they have a neutral site game with
the
Georgia
Irish.
Tech they're playing Stanford today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
obviously but
I'm Irish. Come on, I'm Irish. Like,
Happy Irish Day! Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Let's go. They got to finish off the season. I don't think there's any look aheads for Freeman anymore. I think he's gonna come out swinging for the rest of the year after they got snake bit by NIU. Here's a game that I'm on. This is a non-spread game. Non-top 25 game, I should say. Georgia Tech's going against UNC at Keenan Stadium, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I like Georgia Tech here. I know it's tough to take them as a favorite, but I can't get over it. I got it at -3.5 here. Haynes King is just playing really good, passing the ball, and they're running the ball really well as well. But the average is 74, pass completion rate 8.5 yards per attempt, 8 touchdowns, 1 IT. He doesn't make mistakes. This team meets every year, by the way. And Georgia Tech was a double-digit dog in the last 3 games, and they won outright: 11.5, 21, and 13.5 versus UNC. Now you're seeing them favored for once in this game versus UNC. I took Pittsburgh last week. That cashed for us against UNC. Georgia Tech is 5-1 ATS and straight up versus UNC. In the last 6 seasons, Georgia Tech just historically owned this UNC. Georgia Tech's on the up and up with Brent Pry. UNC is on the down, and I think they got to fire Mac Brown at the end of the season, or he's just got to retire. I don't know what's going on with that one, but Georgia Tech's the only way to go with this one. Take them on whatever spread is available right now. I got -3.5. That's the way I'd go with that game. You got any thoughts on Georgia Tech UNC?
I mean, it's them or nothing here. I mean, you want to take a football team that has covered numbers last year, they're 0-5. If you're betting North Carolina, you're fucking broke. Like you're under a bridge. So those guys that are, still touting like, man, I want to take North Carolina, and this line has come down, which I don't get. So the 3.5, take the team total. Georgia Tech is a favorite. They shouldn't have covered last week. That's just hands down. Duke was up 14-10. They missed a couple field goals. They missed it in the 4th, and they won 34-24 or 24. Sorry, what was the final?
On
24-14.
Yeah.
Duke, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech shouldn't have covered last week. Some people even pushed on it with the 10. But this would be a lone spot. Like after that I don't want them as favorites ever either. But there's just so much problems. Brown's gonna be fired. So many changes. The offense is awful. And if you don't want the 3.5, I think take the team total. Georgia Tech's defense has looked really good. This team's been an under team.
Yeah.
North Carolina, not high flying too. Like I thought, if you looked at the total here, you look at the under. If you were to bet anything,
I think they fixed their defense. That's what you're seeing from Georgia Tech. They can actually stop the run now. They bring over the defensive coordinator that was under Mike Elko. He's taken over the helm, and he's done a terrific job turning that defense around. But we have one more game to talk about before we head it out, because it is 12 o'clock. The games are going to be starting here, but I want to talk about the primetime game of the week. We have Ohio State going up to Oregon in Eugene, 7:30 p.m. The place should be rocking. I'll be watching this on my phone somewhere, or maybe I can get actually watching the hotel room tonight. But this is a big game for both teams in the Big Ten. Ohio State, Oregon. What are your thoughts on this one, C-Mac?
I don't have a bet on it. Big game doesn't mean that you have to bet it. Because this one was one I just went back and forth with. I think Ohio State is the better team here, and I think they could go in there and win. If you got like the 3.5, maybe with Oregon, and obviously Oregon, this is huge too. And we haven't seen a boat from this team. One thing that's why I didn't move on both sides with Ohio State was Will Howard. He's been so good, and he's doing what he has to do. But I was waiting for the big game because I saw him, have trouble at Kansas State when there'd be pressure on him in bigger games and situations. And he's been able, schedule's been easy. Of course, he's got all the weapons around him. He doesn't need to do too much. And that's what he needs to do here. And this Ohio State, why they could win is the defense is very, very good. I think they're a little bit, of course, better than Oregon on their side, which the defense I think has been okay. But, some cupcake games they played really all year too, other than the Boise State game. So just a good one. I think this is one too. I hadn't gone into the props yet. I was going to look into this a little bit more later. If I could find something I like, I'll take it later.
I think if you speaking of props, there was a prop that was talked about in the other show that was on about Keyshawn Junkins over on his rushing yards. I think he's at 62.5 or something like that. It was set at, or 65. I think if you watch Ashton Genty do in that Oregon game, he'd lift them up, and it wasn't like he was breaking tackles like he normally does. He had wide open holes, and he was just cooking down the field untouched. And you could see this with Junkins today, big time. He's 7.8 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. We could be looking at a very high-paced game, but Ohio State's defense, really good. And there's also a common opponent that we use as the barometer between these two teams, Michigan State. Ohio State beat them by 31 as 23.5-point road favorites, plus 237 net yards against them. And Oregon was a 21-point favorite at home and they won by 21, and they didn't cover the 22 at home. And they were favored in that game, but they had plus 227 versus a Michigan State. So I think Ohio State is the better team. This is a step up in class. I can't trust Dylan Gabriel with my money. That guy will throw a pick in the red zone. It's not Bo Nix here, folks. So I'd rather have Bo Nix back there than Dylan Gabriel. I'm not going to put my hard-earned money on that one. By the way, he played 2 bottom-feeding teams in the Big Ten already, and he's thrown 3 picks. We could probably see some interceptions here out of Gabriel once again versus Ohio State's lost 3 games in 3 years. All of them named Michigan. So we'll see about this one. I lean towards the Ohio State side.
The prop on Junkins, I think he could still get that, but I have to say, one thing I've always hated is, of course, he splits carries. Like, there's Henderson. That's always when I take a running back prop and the guy's not the full go-to. It's always driven me crazy when he's not getting all those carries and it's fallen short. It's driven me nuts over the years. But that low, I still think he could get that. Because I think he'll get 10 to 14, right around there. That's what he's been getting. It seems like each game. And I still think you get over that 62. That's my lone thing that always drives me nuts when you're looking at props, especially the running back. Just want to
NFL too. It's like, okay, I'm going to take this one because he has about 14, 15 carries a game. And then you find out the game plan is go to use the other guy 75% of the time because they got away from the other guy because he only had 2 to 3 yards of carry on two carries. And then the other guy just happened to have on his first carry a 9-yard run. So they just keep going to him. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. I've been trying to stay away from the rushing props. They kind of entice me from time to time. I'm on one with Detroit with not Montgomery. Who's the other guy on that one for tomorrow? I can't remember. But anyways, Jahmyr Gibbs. There we go. I just said Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs tomorrow on his rushing and receiving. I had to throw the receiving in there just in case because he's the main weapon as the running back in the off screens. Montgomery's more of a blocker. So I don't know who's going to get most of the carries tomorrow. I'm hoping it's Gibbs. That's kind of where I like the over on the rush yard. So a little NFL given to you on a college football Sunday. But we've gone through the board. Games have already been cooking. I see they're selecting games right now with Ohio State and Oregon. It looks like a split decision on that game. We will see what happens. Going to be a beautiful day of college football, but of course, Connor Mack joining me once again. I appreciate you, my friend. Tell them where they can find you on also all social media platforms, and hell, give them a play.
Okay, let's go. Let's get to a dirty type play. I think it's just under the not many people are talking about this game. This game got canceled, obviously last night. It's a 3:30 start, I believe, or it might be a 4 o'clock start. There's 9s out there now. I haven't wanted to take this team. They got beat up. I don't know if they're very good, but I'm going to take him here. There's 9s, plus 9, South Florida. Give me South Florida here to get it done against Memphis. Memphis, every time I see them in this range, a team that can score, at least in South Florida, not the best defense, I think they hang around. Take the 9 with South Florida. My play today. That's it. Connor Mack Picks on Twitter, X, however you call it now. And check out Hitting the Books every Monday with me and Babano, 1 o'clock Eastern. Go over there, give it a like, subscribe. We appreciate it. And thank you so much, Guns. Let's have a huge, huge Saturday, brother.
Absolutely. And make sure you like and subscribe to this video right here. Support everything on the GunzPicks channel. We've been putting out a lot of content. Of course, the NFL show will be out tonight. the Extra Point Show with me, Shark, and the Odds Fellow. We recorded it last night because I can't do the show tomorrow. It's not going to be live, but it comes out at 12 a.m. Sunday. And I think we have to set the clocks back too. So I don't know how that works with daylight savings time, but it comes out tonight. So go check that out. And like and subscribe to the GunzPicks channel and follow me on X at GunzPicks if you don't do so already. That's going to do it here for Saturday mornings with GunzPicks. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And as always, let's keep dancing.
Headlines, money, road.